Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just dive right in. Have you ever stared out at your yard, maybe at a weird patch of woods or a random pile of rocks, and just thought, how on earth did all this get here? Well, today we're putting on our detective hats. We're going to piece together a massive, multi-million year history using literally nothing but the dirt, the stones, and the shape of the land right beneath our feet. Our story kicks off with a completely relatable, maybe slightly frustrated plea from a homeowner, looking out at some strange dips in their woods and just totally random rocks scattered everywhere. They asked a simple question: what the hell happened on my yard? And you know what? Answering that question reveals layers of history that are absolutely mind-blowing. So I gotta ask you, do you know how to read the deep history hiding underneath your own feet? Because every single rock is essentially a tiny time capsule, and every strange dip in the landscape, it's a scar from a past event. Let's play detective alongside this homeowner and figure out how to decode these natural manuscripts. To kick off the investigation, we've got to organize the sheer chaos of a simple gravel pile. When the homeowners started pulling out rocks, distinct categories immediately popped up, kind of like suspects in a lineup. First, we've got quartzite. These are the tough guys. Super hard, usually tan or pinkish. Then there's granite, your classic, salt and pepper speckled suspects. We've got basalt and gabbro stepping in as the dark, solid heavyweights. And finally, sandstone, standing out with its matte brown, grainy texture. But why are all these completely different types of rocks jumbled together in one single spot? Well, the answer is our first major clue: glacial till. Picture this. Thousands of years ago, massive, mile-thick ice sheets basically acted like giant, continental-sized rock tumblers. I mean, they bulldozed their way across the landscape, scraping up stones from way up north, rounding off their edges as they dragged them along, and then just dumped them all in this beautifully jumbled mix when the ice finally melted. This whole chaotic mix is what geologists call glacial outwash. It's such a wild contrast when you think about it. You're walking down a completely normal-looking wooded trail or a dirt driveway, right? But scattered all throughout that dirt are specific stones that literally traveled hundreds of miles to get there. They aren't native to the bedrock right there. They are ancient, ancient travelers. And speaking of ancient travelers, that brings us to one of the coolest discoveries in this homeowner's collection, the Omaraluk. Rockhounds affectionately call it an Omar. It's a really specific type of glacial erratic rock made of dark gray wecke. And you can spot it instantly because it has these perfectly round, deep circular holes pitted right into its surface. The journey of an Omar is just epic. Millions of years ago, these softer calcite nodules formed inside hard rocks way up near the Belcher Islands in Canada's Hudson Bay. Over an immense amount of time, water completely dissolved those softer nodules, leaving behind those perfect spherical holes. Fast forward to the Ice Age, and glaciers scoop up these exact rocks, bulldoze them hundreds of miles south, and eventually drop them right in this local backyard. It is a literal chain of events perfectly preserved in a single stone. Which brings us to Layer 1, the 400-million-year-old tropical ocean. See, long before those glaciers ever carved the landscape, this area was entirely different. Our homeowner actually found a stunning, water-worn stone covered in tiny repeating pits. Turns out it was a fossilized honeycomb coral, favosites. That means 400 million years ago, this very land was sitting near the equator, covered by a warm, shallow tropical ocean. Tiny coral animals lived there in huge colonies. When they died, they got buried in the ancient mud. And over millions of years, mineral-rich groundwater completely replaced their skeletons with hard silica. It turned them into solid stone, tough enough to survive the crushing weight of the Ice Age glaciers. How wild is that? But the ocean evidence totally doesn't stop there. The homeowner also learned to spot crinoids. Now, people nickname them sea lilies, but crinoids were actually ancient marine animals related to starfish. They had these long stalks anchoring them to the ocean floor, and when they died, the stalks fell apart into tiny individual pieces. If you look really closely at the limestone found in this yard, you can spot these fossilized stem pieces. They look exactly like tiny stone Cheerios, or, miniature stacked poker chips glued right into the rock. Sometimes, though, you don't actually find the fossil itself. You find the ghost of it. And this introduces us to a super cool geological feature called a vug. A vug is just a natural cavity inside a rock. It happens when something soft, like an ancient crinoid stem or a bit of coral, gets trapped inside mud that eventually hardens into limestone. Over time, slightly acidic groundwater seeps through and completely dissolves the fossil away. It leaves behind this deep, textured, empty mold right where that sea creature used to be. Moving on to layer 3, human alteration. Because, let's be real, rocks aren't the only clues hiding in a yard. While out walking their property, the homeowner noticed these large, completely unnatural, continuous trenches dug right into the hillside. They definitely weren't natural ravines formed by water runoff or anything. The shape was just way too deliberate for that. It was a literal mystery carved right into the woods. But by physically following these mysterious continuous trenches, the homeowner realized something key. All these dugout troughs converged, leading directly down towards a mild, swampy spot, a sort of lowland area on the property. Putting all the puzzle pieces together, they reached a pretty brilliant deduction. They said, I do believe that they were just using these other ones to the left of me for fill to get across this. And they hit the nail on the head. Decades ago, probably back in the 1970s, humans brought in heavy machinery to dig into the hillsides specifically to harvest dirt. They needed that fill dirt to build up a functional, dry trail right across that lowland swamp. The mystery of the landscape was totally solved. So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is knowing how to actively read these physical clues around you, whether it's a trench in the woods or just a rock in the palm of your hand. If you pick up a worry stone, something incredibly smooth and perfectly rounded, you're looking at quartzite or chert that was polished by intense glacial grinding over thousands of years. But if you find a Swiss cheese rock, something earthy, deeply pitted, rugged-looking, you are likely holding limestone shaped by acidic water slowly dissolving away ancient fossils. Oh, and before we wrap this up, I've just got to share one slightly humorous but incredibly fascinating type of trace fossil you might actually stumble across out there. Coprolite. Yep, that is the official, fancy scientific word for fossilized animal poop. Just like the coral we talked about, the organic material gets completely replaced by hard minerals over millions of years. Paleontologists absolutely love them because they're essentially ancient time capsules telling us exactly what those prehistoric animals were munching on. When you bring this whole narrative together, you start to realize that the land isn't just some static backdrop. It is a layered manuscript that's been written over, erased, and written over again multiple times. You've got the ancient foundation of a 400-million-year-old tropical ocean. Slapped right over top of that, you have the violent, transformative smearing of the Ice Age glaciers, delivering stones all the way from Canada. And finally, you have the modern human landscaping carved right into the hills. Honestly, understanding this completely changes the way you experience the outdoors. You aren't just walking on dirt anymore. You're walking on deep history. So next time you look down at a beautifully smooth rock, an empty cavity in a stone, or even just a strange dip in the woods behind your house, what epic story is waiting for you to uncover? Keep your head down, keep looking, and you just might find out. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy hunting.